So in today's video, we're going to talk to Matteo Collina to see how he got started with Node.js and what he will talk about in the upcoming NodeCongress conference. This video interview is sponsored by Git Nation and the NodeCongress team. At the NodeCongress conference, you can get a ton of insights on JS backends, explore Berlin's vibrancy, gain practical experience in workshops, and engage with amazing speakers from your favorite open source projects. And you can also join an amazing after party and have fun. You can expect everything at the biggest event about JavaScript backend and DevOps, NodeCongress, happening in Berlin and online on April 14th and 17th. So this is Matteo. He's the co-founder and CTO of Platformatic.dev. He's also a prolific open source author in the JavaScript ecosystem, and he maintains modules are downloaded more than 17 billion times this year. Thanks for joining, Matteo. Why don't you give us everyone an introduction?
Hi, folks. I am Matteo, at Matteo Collina on Twitter, or M Collina on GitHub, and I don't know, you can find me a lot of different places with different handles. For whatever reason that was the case. It's called legacy. Anyway, what do? I typically maintain a chunk of the Node.js ecosystem. I'm also part of the Node.js technical steering committee. So some of the stuff that you use every day they are totally my fault. So I'm sorry. And there is also quite a bit of software that I've wrote that's running on your computer right now. So I don't know. That's more or less as much as I can. As I can say, I've started this new company, Platformatic, last year. We have just released our cloud. So check us out. We make API development super fast. So check it out.
Thank you, Matteo. I think everyone would know you from the great open source projects you maintain, Fastify, Node.js, so many of them.
Maybe.
So yeah. So can you share with us how did you start your career in software development?
So okay, this is it's a complex answer, more or less. The question is, would you want to know what was my first job, or would you want to know when I started developing software?
I think it's...
I have two completely different answers for this.
Yeah, I think we can do both. I think maybe you start with the software development. How did you start? That would be interesting.
I started... when I was a kid, okay, my dad, we had at home a Commodore 64. And my dad, in order to have video games for the Commodore 64, he bought magazines, and he had to type the games, the code of the game, because there was no way to distribute source code at the time or something like that. So you had to print it and type it again. So my dad was literally coding these games, and then we were playing these games on the Commodore 64 when I was more or less 4 or 5 years old, something like that. And that's essentially what my first exposure to source code, literally watching my dad type. And typically did a lot of that with me on his lap and with me making, noise and not making me in focus. So after that, I did some coding on the Amiga a few years later, still preteen type of stuff. I would call it the predecessor of Scratch, if you're familiar with those kind of suite of tools, but I coded an asteroid clone and some other stuff like it. Fun. Fast forward, I have done. I passed my teens. I rebelled a little bit. So I don't know. You can guess what I did with the software in those years. And then after that, I did. I went to university, did my bachelor, my master, then worked a year in the industry, went back to school to do a PhD, Then Node happened. So in the meanwhile, my first year of going in the industry, I was developing banking software in Java. And I did not like that very much, to be honest. But it was one of the most formative, one of my most formative year, if I want to say that, because I learned quite a lot on what's broken to some extent in the backend development industry. And I still remember how slow I was and what problems I was facing all the time. And to be honest, I every time I develop an open source library these days, it's because my target user is that person that I was on my first job. Like I want my job when I started in the industry better and less miserable. So essentially, this is what one of the things that motivates me to begin with.
Yeah, I think this is what makes a great open source software. Is like when you give it to you made it specifically for the end user in mind. I think this creates an amazing open source software for the community. And I think like the open source software you maintain, including Node, Fastify, Deno, are all really great software. I use them myself. I used them for so long. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't? So yeah, that was a really interesting intro. Thank you, Matteo, for the great introduction. I think that was really interesting to know about all the background of people like making great open source software. I think great open source software maintainers actually made a whole lot of huge projects and really nice projects. So can you tell us about the projects or applications that you've actually developed and worked on that you are particularly proud of?
Of course. Let me. So I have a few actually. Okay, one of the things that I'm most proud of. Okay, it's typically the ones that I'm going to talk about are not the famous ones. Okay, so I created Fastify, I created Pino, I created Undici, which is a new HTTP library for Node. We are all talking. This has been very popular in the JavaScript and Node.js ecosystem, and a lot of people use those tools. Okay, so I'm not talking about those. Okay, those are, of course, it will be, oh, I'm so proud of having written Undici, or I'm so proud of having written Fastify or Node, or Fastify or Pino, or a feature specific of Node that I develop. I'm going to talk about the niche things. Okay, and the ones that underpins these all, but to some extent, very few people use directly. Everybody use them maybe, but they are buried down in a lot of layers of dependencies. Okay, so so the first one that I'm going to talk about, it's a module called FastQ, which it might sound nothing. Okay, it's a little queue processor that runs on the same process. So basically, you tell a job to do, and it will run it on the same JavaScript process that you are executing on. And you can limit the number of the concurrency, so you can say I only want to do 5 in parallel or 6 in parallel, or just 1. Okay, and that's it. That's what it does. Okay, that's all of what it does. Okay, super tiny. This super tiny module, as of March 2023, 130 million downloads per month.
Whoa.
Okay.
That's great.
It's a tiny module though that has, I don't know, I think a few, it has only 656 stars.
Oh.
Like it's buried in impossible dependency chains, okay?
Yeah.
So just to clarify the gist, it's super fast. It's very lightweight. It does get the job done. It has both callback and promises API. It's great. Just, if you need, it solves that job very well. Okay, and you can check it out. Okay.
Nice.
The other module that I am pretty proud of, which is another completely very niche module. It's an old module called clonable readable. So it's a module that allows you to clone a stream. So how do you clone a stream? How do you create an object, the representation of a stream that is a clone of that original stream? And what does that mean? This module has more or less, I think, 10 million downloads per month, or something like that.
Wow.
But another one that's completely like, all of these are to some extent for different reasons feat of engineering on their own, but I have no real, they're very hidden, okay, from the point of view. Another one that I want to signal is a module called Sonic Boom. And it says in the name, it's very fast.
Yeah.
Okay, it breaches the barrier of sound. Okay, that's why it's called Sonic Boom.
Okay.
It's basically, in order to make it's what makes Pinot fast. So at some point when we were developing Pinot, we found out that Node.js was too slow. So we moved away from Node.js streams and we used Sonic Boom for writing stuff out. These enable us also to do certain things that streams are not supported at all. So you could do, for example, reopening files, rotating files. We can do a lot of other things thanks to Sonic Boom. And we support both synchronous and asynchronous mode. It's great. Very hidden, okay. Very nice. There are quite a few people from Netflix sending me bug reports and insane PRs about their log usage. So it's you think about that, and I think about it every time I turn on the TV at home. So it's a pretty little thing that it's. And thank you, Mary, for fixing all the bugs, because they fixed all the bugs. Okay, it's at their massive scale, so it's great.
Awesome.
So this is another one. Okay, I am going to mention Avio, which is the, and I'm giving you all the links afterwards, so you can find them. Okay. But Avio is the plugin system for Fastify, which is its own module. A lot of people don't know that. So the plugin system for Fastify is actually its own module. So you can actually build your own framework using just Avio, which is called, it's like start. It's the meaning of start in Italian. And this little thing is downloaded more or less as much as Fastify is downloaded, so more or less about 4 million downloads per month. And I'm very proud of it. It's literally, I would call it all the skeleton in the closet of Fastify are in Avio, like all of them. Like there is some logic in there that I'm just like, what were I thinking when I wrote this? And it underpins the Fastify ecosystem beautifully. But it's quite a serious feat of software development engineering. So I'm very proud of it. Last but not least, I have a module called Async Cache Dedupe, and it's kind of a little Swiss Army knife of caching. That if you start using it, can automatically increase the throughput of your application, maybe 10x or something, or an order of magnitude at least, if not two. It's very nice. Okay, you just throw in, change a few lines, and we'll automatically get a few hundred from 10 to 10x more throughput out of it, out of your system. Very as straightforward as that. Which nobody, this is very little known, and it's great, but it's just very tiny module, very specialized and niche. So. So I think I covered them. I think I covered all the things that I gave you the ones that are less common to say, so that for our listeners that they can take a look at some of them and get inspired. That it's not just the most shiny thing that what you you are most impressed of. It's maybe even the little thing that's there.
I think, yeah. I think you covered really great, some open source projects that a lot of people are not aware of, including me. I'm super interested. I think I read about Avio before for the Fastify and everything. It's great. I'm definitely gonna check the others. They look really amazing. The whole thing.
There is actually one more, which is another super interesting feat of engineering. Again, I'm very, these are modules that are completely, very, as I said, very niche. This is it's a module called onExit leak free. So if you so this module is super nice. So there is you know that when you have Node.js, you need to do a non-exit. You can specify a non-exit event emitter, right? But you cannot add too many of those because after a bit you will create a memory leak. So not every module can attach themselves there. But with onExit leak free, you will not have that problem. And even if your callback object goes out of scope, whatever, it will be safely collected. So there is a lot of work in there with weak reference and affiliation registry to make it perfect. And I love this module. And I think this module, at some point I will just take the courage and put it in core because it's just so useful, and that should not really be on NPM. So.
Yeah, that last one looks really amazing. I would love to check the actual source code. It looks like a masterpiece.
Yay!
Yeah. Speaking about the different open source, great, awesome Node.js projects that actually you maintain and you work with, and all the good tools that you actually built to go around the whole Node.js ecosystem. So can we just get what is your perspective to see what do you see in the next future, or the near future?
So let me get into it. This is a good. It's somewhat a good question. So it's so the future of Node.js is very bright from my point of view. There is we have quite there's been a massive renaissance. That's the way it's pronounced. A massive renaissance in Node in the last year or probably two. We have, I would say, moved away or passed over the concept of small core. So the idea that we have very small, the node itself should be as small as possible, but it should actually be, it should include more stuff. Okay, and you can see these every day. So we started shipping fetch, for example.
Finally.
We started shipping a test runner. Come on, we are shipping a freaking test runner, which is amazing from my point of view. I didn't think I would get to see that. Okay, and we are started shipping new awesome APIs. Okay, that developers need, and they are asking us to add. And essentially, it's great. So from my point of view, there is the project is very solid. Okay, there's a very good collaborator base. It's very active. People are engaging, and it's moving way faster right now than it used to be moving in the last few years. For a few years, there was a few years where the project stagnated a little bit, and right now instead it's super fast. It's moving super fast. Yeah. It's even moving too fast for somebody. So I'm good. I'm very happy about it. On the other end, there is all these other new runtimes that are coming out. Well, they have all these other runtimes that are coming out are implementing Node.js APIs. So. And supporting NPM. So what's the point? And I'm just being very, They're great. They're a great piece of software. I like the fact, like, if it wasn't for this new runtime challenging the status quo, Node.js would never have awoken from his slumber, essentially. But right now, it's like the question whenever for all those runtimes is, how long would it take for Node to incorporate the best features from those new runtimes versus them to become Node?
Yeah.
Like, it's where would you put your bet? Okay, very much. This is a very much question for the audience as much as me. So it's great, but I'm really love. I wish them the best, essentially. But like right now, it's there was a few announcements a few years back of one of those projects says it will destroy Node, it will kill Node, it will burn Node, or it will burn the Node_modules folder. I don't know if you remember those meme. It was pretty aggressive take, okay, and I didn't like the take as much as I could, and they shipped backend JSON, and it's great, by the way. It's not like, again, there's nothing wrong in the project. It's the best thing to do to ship backend JSON to keep the community together, and that's great. So. I'm very happy to have that there is a little bit of competition anyway, and that's great. On the other hand, our download numbers, our origin numbers, and so on, didn't even flinch since these new projects came around. So
Yeah.
I think on one hand the market is big enough for everybody, and on the other hand the market is on the other hand. Node.js is doing great, so I'm not concerned.
Nice. I think I agree with you. I think Node.js is the top of the list, and not just like a runtime that comes like in a day or two. That's gonna take down Node that has been there for years. I'm a big lover of Node. I use it pretty much for all my projects, production, open source, through my YouTube channel. Yeah, Node is definitely not going anywhere, and there's a huge base community and huge lovers, including me. So thank you for the really like explanation and encouragements of how Node can actually stay in the top of the list and what is the promising future of Node. So speaking of the great Node.js ecosystem and the like community base and everything, I think you are like one of the great lead maintainers of the Fastify JS projects. So could you please share with us why you would advise, or why would you see developers, people use Fastify versus other stuff, and what do you see in Fastify particularly?
Okay, so first of all, use whatever works for you. Okay, use whatever makes you more productive. Okay, I'm going to try to tell you why Fastify makes you more productive, but that's totally up to you, and whatever you use is fine. So what we do, okay, so the reason why you should be using Fastify are a few. Okay, so the first one is if you're building an API or a web system and so on, you want to have a framework that performs validations for you, and you want to have a framework that protects you against prototype pollution attacks. The other frameworks don't do that. Okay, minus API. API is a great framework, so you can use API. And but Express does not do that. Next does not do that. Next is not built for building APIs as much as they try to tell you. Is not built for building APIs. So if you are building APIs, you probably want something like Fastify to begin with, because it provides you validation at the start, when the request comes inside the system. So it's that's really what it is. Okay. And also provides some good protections against prototype pollution attacks, for example, and things like that. It has embedded logging built in, a lot of best practices already prepared. There is a lot of plugins that you can use that protects you for all possible basic use cases that you can think of. So gives you automatic protection against the event loop trashing problem, or provides a very good solution to protect you against cross-site request forgery attacks. which there is no more. The most popular module on npm for Express was deprecated this September, for example. So again, I am mentioning this stuff because it's probably the safe options right now. Yeah, essentially. On top of that, there is this thing called the plugin system, which is great, which is what I would talk about at NodeCongress. So it's how you can build your Fastify application, structuring it in plugins, so that you can then you're building them in plugins, so that while you are doing all this work, you can just create your application so that whenever when you want more people working on it, they don't step on each other's toes. Okay. And you start building and you start segmenting your application feature by feature, instead of throwing all the routes in the same box, all the models in the same folder, and having this file of 10,000 lines. This is my routes.js file in Express. Oh, it's 10,000 lines of code. Okay. And I have a models folder. How many models do you have? Oh, I have 2,000 models. Okay, now we have a problem here. Okay. And Fastify provides you some guidance on how to structure your application for scale, for dealing with the complexity of writing modern software and writing a lot of it. So yeah, that's more or less why you should be using Fastify.
So as we all are very eager to be in the NodeCongress and the great speakers and everything that's happening, so can you give us like a sneak peek into what's coming and what you will be discussing in your NodeCongress talk, and what attendees can actually expect in the talk?
So of course I can. So in my NodeCongress talk, I'm going to go through how I structure Node.js applications for success. So either you're working alone or you're working as a team, it doesn't matter, but there are certain things that you need to do to structure your application for success. And I am, in this session, I'm just explaining that and how I structure code, especially at the beginning of a project, so that I will not have a lot of technical debt to cover and fix things once my team scales, or my company scales, or my project explodes in success, or anything. And to be honest, it's not that what I'm recommending is cost you more in terms of time most of the time. It's just a different way of laying down your code and structuring your features. But over time it compounds, and the net result will be that this way of structuring code will enable a lot more refactorings and a lot more flexibility than what I would say the traditional way of building stuff with Node.js. And this is essentially the key part of the talk. What are we going to use? Well, of course, we are using the framework that I created, Fastify, to demonstrate all of this logic. So it's actually built for supporting this kind of use case. So you can actually build what I call them modular monoliths with Fastify very easily, so that then you could, to be honest, migrate them to microservices when you need to, or split them up, or chain things, and you're not in an unconstrained way. Essentially, your application will not hold you back in making the changes that are actually needed for your software.
All right, awesome. That sounds like a really interesting talk that a lot of us would definitely must be there, actually be either in person or live. The talk will be held there, so make sure everyone to come and join us at NodeCongress with Matteo and a whole lot of like other great speakers, open source, and everyone. So I think we came to the end of our interview. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Matteo, for joining us today. Thank you for sharing all the great info and the details. I think the community would be glad for that interview. They will have so much info now about Node.js, the ecosystem, Fastify, so much more, and JavaScript and backends in general. Again, thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Matteo. Catch you everyone, hopefully, in another one. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.